This should be done as part of a collaborative effort between McHenry District 156 and the city, particularly the police department. While a traffic signal is not warranted at this time, one should potentially be planned for a long term, such as 20, 30, something like that, for the safe movement of vehicles in the future as traffic volumes increase. The applicant is seeking a variance to exceed the maximum height limitation for the building addition, 35 feet, which is the maximum height in a residential district, which would be the same as like a single-family zoning district, from 35 feet to 45 feet. Staff is not concerned with this variance. The proposed addition is approximately 125 feet from Crystal Lake Road and over 350 feet from the closest residence to the northwest. The applicant is also seeking a variance to eliminate parking lot landscape islands. To the north of the building, landscape islands are proposed on the ends of the parking rows. On the south, no parking lot landscape islands are proposed. However, the applicant is proposing a center landscape strip between the existing parking lot and the expansion with a sidewalk from the tennis courts to the building. Again, staff does not have a problem with this variance request. The applicant is limited in space and trying to maximize parking. Additionally, there is effort being made to do some improvements within the parking areas. The applicant is also seeking a variance to construct a salt storage shed to the west of the existing maintenance building. The building is approximately, as shown on this plan, at least 1,750 square feet and will allow the school district to store sufficient volume of salt on site for use throughout the winter. All RS or residential zoning districts in the city are restricted to a maximum of 2 accessory buildings. And several currently exist on the subject property. Therefore, a variance is required to address this as well. Staff supports this variance. This is a very unique situation in property. The property was acquired many decades ago. It's a complex site with many different types of and sizes of accessory buildings with the ball fields and such. So it's not unusual that they'd be requesting a variance for this. None of the circumstances creating the need for the requested variances were caused by or direct result of the action taken by the applicant. At this time, staff's recommendation is approval of the conditional use permit to allow an assembly use with conditions listed in the staff report. Staff finds that the requirements set forth in table 31 have been met, and approval of a variance from the maximum building height from 35 feet to 45 feet with the following condition: that the project's developed in accordance with the site plan as you see it before you. The staff finds that the requirement set forth in table 32 of the zoning ordinance has been met, and approval of a variance from the landscaping and screening ordinance to eliminate the parking lot landscape islands with the condition that the site is developed in accordance with the site plan that you see before you. And staff finds that the requirements of table 32 have been met. And approval of a variance from the accessory uses, yards and fences to allow an additional accessory structure, salt dome, with the condition that the property is developed in accordance with the site plan that you see before you. Staff finds the requirements of table 32 have been met. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Excellent, thank you, Doug. Commissioners, before I start and open the floor, I would like to just talk a little bit about how we will vote on these items. I would recommend that we take item number 1 as the conditional use and then lump the variances together is probably the easiest way to handle the vote for those. If everyone's in agreement with that, I would like to propose that we vote that way on these. I think those 2 items being separate items are something that should be addressed separately. And at that point, I will switch and run to the other end of the floor. Commissioner Doherty, do you have any questions?
So the salt building, that would be the orange one, the dark orange is the existing, and then the bright orange is the new one?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Tennis courts, are you doing anything for the tennis courts, or what
Yes.
hear something about that?
There's 6 tennis courts here where the parking is going to be expanded. We're going to be building a new 10 tennis courts south of that. There's the existing 6 courts are lit. I think the current plan is to light 4 of the 10 when they're relocated. But that's all we're doing is rebuilding them for a little further south, further away.
Okay. So the parking lot, is it gonna be grade, or do you have to walk up to, like that driveway in the back?
This parking lot here will just be an extension of the grade of the parking lot immediately south of the building. So this would just be a continuous slope.
Those are my three
Relative.
questions.
Excellent, thank you, Commissioner Doherty. Commissioner Miller?
No, come back to me, please.
Yes, not a problem. Commissioner Sepulveda?
You can come back to me as well.
Excellent. Commissioner Walsh?
I'm ready. So the tennis court's being moved along the Kensington side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Butt up against the house, and there's a burn there.
Yep.
And you said only 4 are gonna be lit?
Yes.
Maybe 5. Maximum
5.
5 at this time.
Okay.
It'd be
But
about-
that butts up right against those houses right there, right?
Right. We would like the ones furthest away from the property.
LEDs?
Typically
Correct.
LEDs,
Yes.
typically also very short poles, so the light stays within the courts pretty well.
Yeah.
With windscreens, there's very little spill.
And any hours of limitation on that, or, because
Okay.
I live over there as well, so I see those things lit up all night long, so I'm sure those neighbors along Kensington won't like that. I'm sure Andy will agree with me on that one at least.
We can review that.
Yep.
Also, the traffic, how many more, what's the increase in student parking now that we're gonna bring them all over?
The planned increase in student parking spaces is 274. There'll be an increase of student population of the building,
Right.
but based on our projections of the need, that's the demand to change the parking numbers at this campus.
So it's going up
From 800 and, right, to the new total of 874, so up by 224, I'm sorry.
and there's only one in, one out for students still?
Students will all enter and exit here on the south side. They do that now with the assisted police.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
interesting.
But if you read Doug's notes,
Yeah.
the issue is that the recommendation is to have that addressed with District 156 and the police department
Yep.
to figure out an alternative. They
Absolutely.
just don't have a solid alternative yet.
Yes.
But that is part of one of the items that's on that.
Yep, absolutely.
I didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
Commissioner
you're
Walsh,
fine.
but
No, 'cause
but it
I-
is stated in the proposal that
Right.
that will be discussed and agreed upon with the police department as well.
Absolutely.
I've had the honor of sitting in it for a while, so.
Right.
And it gets backed up all the way to Dartmoor, in fact, and
Yes.
around, and it becomes a hazard when the parents are letting the kids out onto Crystal Lake Road because they don't wanna sit in traffic anymore, so.
Right.
yeah,
Actually,
that-
one of the suggestions of our traffic study was modifying the signal times north and south of the campus, which will provide better gaps that the police could use to get students in and out. Should at least stretch out and alleviate some of the congestion there. Not all of it, but some of it.
Okay.
Commissioner Gerda?
Biggest thing I have there again is the traffic that's there. I know it was said that a traffic signal is not warranted at this point, but, again, being there, sitting in the traffic, now with, approximately, I guess we're guessing to be about 224 cars more going in and out there every day.
Right.
Granted, I don't think anyone can actually come up with a number of how much traffic that may decrease because parents are not dropping kids off,
Mhm.
they're staying there. But still, getting out, I would say, in my opinion, that a traffic light is needed there, even if it's only used during the in and out hours. Because of how bad it backs up, and again, safety is, as Jim said, kids being let out of Crystal Lake Road and darting across the traffic. That would be my biggest concern with this.
Thank you.
What's being I'm sorry, I'm gonna come back.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Unless Sue, you're ready.
Go ahead, Commissioner Walsh.
What's being, disturbed along the backside of like Oakwood or around the back side
Here?
of Kensington, yeah?
This road will continue, will remain from right now, and all this is used for right now is bus leaving the campus.
Right.
The buses enter the campus here, make their way around, stack up here to pick up students, and then we'll continue. This road will get renovated, just because the addition is going to, land right where the road is now. But other than that, it will return back to this, coming around the north side of the administration facility, and then exit back onto Oakwood. And again, only bus traffic using that.
So nothing around the other field over there in the corner and?
Correct, there's no other improvements outside of this. This is still the same administration building. This parking lot will get renovated because of the shape change and
Right.
the expansion, but the road out to Oakwood will not change.
Additional questions, Commissioner Wall? Commissioner Miller?
Yes, so the green practice fields,
Yes, ma'am.
obviously the one to the south currently exists, and
Yep.
that's gonna remain there behind the new parking lot.
That's correct.
So the two that are in the middle,
Yep.
that's pretty much open space right now that they use for a variety of reasons.
Mhm.
But we have a new white line going to something that has like black antlers on it. Is that a new lighting?
This one here is, no, that's just a path that exists.
And
It's
what's
just
the
an
black
entry path.
thing on
There are
the?
trees,
isn't it?
yeah, gravel path,
It's a
and I think
gravel
there's some
path.
existing trees or vegetation that's there.
Mhm.
It's not, there's no new improvements in this region, other than the expansion of the detention basin. So,
So what's the black thing?
Trees.
Trees,
No, that's not a tree. It's
gravel, it might be like,
gravel
just
or
like.
bleachers or,
Yeah.
they're marked as bleachers, actually.
There's a bunch of stuff out
Yeah,
there.
I believe the field to the smaller field to the north is the junior varsity soccer field.
Right.
And I'm not positive what the other one is.
So site furniture.
So
as it
no
were.
other changes to
No
that
improvements are
area?
planned out there. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Sabota?
I'll still pass for that.
At this time, I'd like to open the public portion of the meeting. If anyone would like to speak, actually, I have the list here.
May we walk and see?
Absolutely, Gail, you can come up and take a peek. Anyone from the gallery who'd like to look at the boards up front, please step forward.
We will be affected. Okay, I'm on Oakwood. You happen to sense a direction. Okay, so what is this?
This is all efficiency, this is two baseball fields.
Oh, okay. And where, the lighting, there's there. Okay, so there's gonna be more lighting left on? Uh-huh. Okay, so we have.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I make a recommendation for us for now? Folks, I'm gonna have the people from the gallery come up and take a peek, but we'll limit conversation to, you can address that when you come to the podium and I swear
Well,
to you.
that's fine,
Thank you. We'll ask questions when we come to the podium, Tom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I might stay here, if it helps.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, totally fine, absolutely.
A little bit better on my feet, right?
So I'm gonna call names from the list of people who are signed in to speak. If you do not wanna speak, no problem. If the person who was up in front of you talked about the same items you'd like to talk about, and most of those have been answered, we'd love it if we could limit some of that time for repeat questions. At this time, I'd like to call Alderman Glab.
I would like to hear everybody else's questions before I come up.
Yes, sir. Gail, would you like to speak? Would you like to
No.
ask some questions?
Well, I do have questions.
Please step to the podium, let me swear you in, and you can ask all the questions you'd like.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Gail Riddle, 4919 Oakwood Drive. If this is approved, which I'm assuming it will be, when would this project start? I
I'll let
mean,
the petitioner answer that for you.
I'm going for
Sure.
noise and,
So the school district would like to start the work as soon as possible, hopefully in June, as soon as the students are out of school.
out of school.
Yeah.
And what is your projected time of completion? I know it's so.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving targets,
But
but
just,
The sequence would be to work on the south improvements first, the field, the tennis courts, and then to get everything in place to dig the foundations for the expansion. Then once that expansion is underway, most of that work is indoors. The last of the things that would be done would be the work on the north lot by the administration building, once that, that'll be the staging area for most of the construction. So,
Okay, is this gonna be a 7-day-a-week project or a 5-day?
no, it wouldn't be projected as that. It'd probably be projected as a normal 5-day-a-week project, correct? Probably unless things go really wrong, which they won't, right?
Okay,
I'm on
that's
record for
all.
that.
Great, thank you,
Thank
Gail,
you.
appreciate it. At this time, the only other person I have signed in to speak would be Alderman Glab.
I guess my first question I'll have.
Alderman Glab, can I please swear you in, sir?
Absolutely,
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
That's Andrew A. Glab, 5001 West Oakwood Drive.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Everyone. I guess one of my first reservations is naturally the ingress and egress.
Okay.
I can tell you right now that I don't care what the state says as far as there's always ways of working things out. This school needs a traffic light. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I know the school takes and pays for one of our officers that is on duty every day to take and deal with the traffic in and out of there. However, that takes an officer off of a route for an hour to where the school kids are speeding through the subdivisions. And I mean, that's in every direction. Needless to say, you're looking at 240 some odd cars probably coming in. Now, I've been on the council since 1997. I can tell you, we dealt with, on several occasions, the parking problems around the downtown area, around east. And even several meetings that I had been to before I became an alderman for 3 or 4 years. Constantly having to massage those no parking areas. We've already had one problem on Kensington. We tried to massage that as best we could so that we do not impact the neighborhood. Needless to say, you don't want, you want to solve the problem, but you don't want to impact the neighborhood and restrict them from parking on their own, absolutely, front of their own places. Creative, we're gonna have to be definitely creative as far as parking, not just on Kensington. From what I've seen in the past, you could be looking at 3 or 4 blocks out in all directions. You know, some kids, you know, I've always heard that they don't wanna pay for the parking permits. Well, it isn't just the parking permits. Kids just like to be off the campus. They like their cars off of there, and unfortunately, it impacts the residents in the neighborhoods. So that's one of my concerns. Somebody mentioned the noise. Yeah, the construction noise unfortunately is gonna be there. However, there are certain hours that, you know, that the city has as far as the ordinances to protect the residents as best they can so that you're not hearing it all, you know, all the way till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So that I don't think is too much of an issue. However, one of the things that is an issue is the chillers. What are we gonna do about those? Is that going to, with this expansion, affect those chillers any? Are they gonna get better or worse?
They're being replaced.
They're being replaced with
Next
what?
year, more modern, quieter machine.
Much quieter, I would hope.
Yep.
I mean, you realize I can sit out on my deck at 6 o'clock in the morning and nice and quiet, having a cup of coffee and a cigarette. And then all of a sudden, I hear this horrid screeching. And I don't hear it as bad as a couple of them that are, on Kensington. Sound is funny, the way it bounces, because I'll hear it, and I'm probably as far away from anybody on that perimeter as it, of the property, but yet, depending on which angles you're at, you know, you'll hear it stronger or less. Just as well, you could be standing in your parking lot on the south side and not hear it at all. You know, so like I said, you know, and I understand how sound can bounce and all that. I will take your word for that will be an improvement, because I think the whole neighborhood would like to see that. Another thing I'd like to address is the fact that, the drainage.
Sir?
Okay, from what I can recall, and again, we're probably looking at 18 years ago.
Yep.
When we were discussing 18, maybe 19 years ago, as far as where the drainage comes off of the parking lots into that retention area. Remember, retention, and we're gonna talk about that yet. Where does, the north side drain to?
It does convey down to that same detention basin by storm sewer.
To a sewer, through a sewer.
Through a sewer to this detention basin.
Will that sewer be the capacity enlarged?
As needed, yes, as needed. That part of that sizing is part of what we're doing within our design. The main thing that we're affecting in the big picture that we're talking about here is that we're actually planning on expanding that detention basin to include capacity for other elements of that park site or the school site. That original basin was sized only for the expansion in 2000, 2001, so.
I take a look at the size of that detention. I would expect that that is going to be a detention and not retention pond.
The proposed would actually be a continuation of the natural native planted bottom basin. The existing basin, after a few years, was not operating as intended, but the replacement basin will continue to be a natural planted basin, so you'll have prairie plants in the bottom. It'll be dry until you have a rain event, when your rain events come through.
Okay, here's a scenario from last time.
Okay.
And that's the fact that it was supposed to be a detention pond.
Right.
And the engineering said, well, gee, we took the survey on a dry year. We didn't realize how dry a year. And engineering, you don't take it for 1 year. You take it as an average, at least a 10-year average.
More than
So
that,
you should,
yes.
okay, so you should know what the water tables are like up there, and they are very high.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen where underground springs actually head out to Oakwood 2 days after a huge rainfall. It's dry as can be everywhere with the sun shining, and there's a curb here or there that are just sopping wet.
Yep.
I just kind of laugh sometimes because I think of when I first bought my house back in 1991, didn't know anything about any of this stuff, and it's amazing when it affects you how fast you learn.
You learn about it, right?
Way even before I was an alderman. I can tell you right now that when the school took and put in the mobiles, I believe that was 92, nobody ever thought about the fact that it added additional drainage. They did address a little bit of the drainage as far as the, well, you know what, I'm not gonna go into history because I think I've explained that to several people for a long time. I have never been in favor of this expansion. I still like to know why we are not taking and dealing with the $2.5 million piece of property that we bought 17 years ago. However, we passed a referendum, the people have spoken, okay? I would hope, even though I didn't take a vote yes on this, that I'll still get the $70 savings that, according to the $47,000 that was spent for this campaign, specified. But now we're talking a overflow
Sir? Yep.
on the detention pond.
Correct.
Okay. Are we gonna move that overflow?
No.
Why?
The overflow is in a good position. It discharges to the concrete channel that heads west and north. The basin, as I've tried to sort of briefly describe, does not operate the way it was intended to back in 2000. The pipe and restricted outflow was clogged. Hugh found that out and was able to, we're working on cleaning that system up so it operates as intended. The new basin will be about twice as large surface area to store the additional water that's now tributary to it in the design. But the intended operation would be during normal storm events, you won't see water coming over that overflow. That overflow is intended for operations when you have a storm event in excess of that 0.01 probability or 100-year event.
Right.
So
Which back in the 90s, late 90s, we've had, and
We've
granted,
encountered it.
things cycle, so that
Yes.
sooner or later we'll have it. I mean, there were times that we had 100-year storms 2 to 3 times in a year. So, I mean, And again, it was a lot easier to understand drainage at that time when you saw that.
Right.
However, at the fact that your property is like a funnel, it basically funnels down.
Right to the
you know,
top.
towards.
Yep.
And at the angle that it runs, why wouldn't you put the overflow further west?
Well, where it's located here, this is just our
Uh-huh.
right side plan in here.
Which is way on the east portion of the detention.
Oh, but I hit Ryan in the eye here. Well, the detention's gonna act as a big pond, so all that overflow access is sort of the spigot for that teacup. So as
I
the-
understand that, but
right.
what I'm getting at is considering it's at an angle like this and the runoff is here,
Mhm.
how high a bunk are you gonna have to plateau that water before it starts coming out there, or is it going to flow out west before it ever gets to the riprap?
The riprap, again, should only operate as an overflow when the pond is at its full capacity.
I understand that, but what I'm getting at is if it's up at the higher end, okay, what would, you know,
You like inferring.
how high is that bunk gonna be on the west end to
Oh.
keep the elevation up, of the water to where it will actually outflow onto the riprap rather
Sure.
than
I'll let Don
overflowing onto the west side?
Hi, I'm Don Dixon, I'm the engineer on this. So basically, when we were expanding the basin, as we go further to the northwest, we're cutting into the hill.
Mhm.
So we're looking right now whether that's the best thing. We may come down and expand to the south a little bit because we're generating so much earthwork. But basically, when the water comes in to the basin, it doesn't matter what angle it's going into that basin because it's gonna attenuate. It's gonna like filling up the bathtub. So no matter whether you've got water coming in from 5 different directions, when it hits that pool, it's just gonna start filling up. It's not gonna convey through that body of water and try to spill out on one side or the other. It's gonna find its level and it's gonna come up. The part of the problem I think you've been seeing out there is that, as Tom mentioned, the pond's been full. The pond has been full for a number of months that we know since we did the survey because the outlet was restricted. It was clogged. Maintenance went out. We asked him to go out and clean that out. It's being cleaned out. Now the water level started dropping back down. So what you should see now is you're gonna see more continuous flow coming out of the pond. It's gonna last a longer time, but it's gonna be less rate. And these huge overflows that we're seeing because the pond was full are gonna lessen, and you're only gonna see this, you know, on rare occasions, because now the pond will be large enough, the overflow's working, the restrictor's working the way it should, and it's slowly releasing the water to the receiving ditch.
What about the natural springs that come out on that property? We have natural springs that come out.
They
They
will
flow
come-
towards the drainage ditch.
Okay?
However, the water ponds. It doesn't, you know,
When you're saying
When-
ponding, are we talking about ponding in the pond or upstream? in the
no,
basin?
upstream. I mean, you know, between where the water is actually coming up out of the ground to, the drainage ditch. So you wind up with areas that continuously stay moist for a long, long period of time.
Well, what we'll be doing is, with the design of the drainage system, basically you have water that comes in from your subdivision, discharges, along the side of the property, flows down toward the basin.
Mhm.
With the addition of the tennis courts that are going in, we're gonna have to pipe some of that. We're gonna pick it up at the upper end, we're gonna pipe it with a large pipe, we go around it, and then release it again. Those areas that are ponding, we're gonna try to clean those up and put under drains in some of those areas, extensive under drains associated with the tennis courts, so that any water that's trying to come up through that area will hit basically French drain and go out. And if there's some other areas, you're telling us that there's springs out there, we'll look into that and see where those are coming up, so that we can also put some drains in there and divert that water back into our waterway.
Now, you brought up the tennis courts, and that becomes another question, and that's the fact that I mean, you're looking at, what, 20.5 feet away from the property lines of people that live at the back of Kensington, that you're going to have the corner of your tennis courts, to basically their property lines. It's awful close to residential. Are there any plans as far as buffering? I know back in the last time that they expanded the school, they put those buffers up on the south side of the parking lots to protect the view on some of those residents. And more so than the view, we're looking at the noise over there of tennis courts, especially considering you're expanding the amount of tennis courts. And I would hope, and again, that might become another issue as far as the fact that how long those tennis courts stay open at night. Nobody wants to hear at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, thump.
Very good.
You know, so, again, are we looking at figuring out some kind of a buffering over there
Yes.
to
Absolutely.
protect the residents over there?
Yeah,
I mean,
normal operation.
they're going to lose the open space they have, they understand that, I've talked to some of them. Have shown them the plans, but again, the reservation's more than anything else, or now the noise more than anything. You're still gonna, I'm sure, have a tall fence up there, you know, protect the kids just jumping over or whatnot.
Correct.
But noise will go through those,
Additional
cycles.
landscaping, wind screening, right? Yeah.
And also, when we were positioning the elements on the site, you know, we had to look at what would the residents prefer next to them? A tennis court or a parking lot that had site lighting out there with cars going around, you would have snow plows in the middle of the night. So we thought that it was better to place the tennis courts closer to the residents to act more of a buffer, because it's gonna have less use, than having the parking lot adjacent.
I absolutely agree.
And the other thing that, we did mention that there's gonna be potentially there'll be site lighting on, or court lighting out there. And that's not a given right now, and the reason is because with the addition of, like, more tennis courts right now, there's 6 courts out there.
Six.
So with 4 more courts, they're gonna be able to cycle through their games quicker, and there may not even be the need for any lights at night. Because they'll be able to get through their games before it gets dark enough for you to need to turn the lights on.
But you're gonna have the public that's gonna say, well, if they're there, you know, they're gonna wanna use them, not just, you know, for the school, use itself. You know, the taxpayers have paid for it, they're gonna wanna use those courts, and we just wanna make sure that we're not gonna try to accommodate them as far as late night, activity on.
And that'll have
Too
to be
late.
with an hours of operation.
Correct.
Or a year.
Okay, I guess pretty much that answers most of my questions for right now. Appreciate the time, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Glad.
Any other questions while I'm Vanna White here?
You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Anyone from the gallery that would like to speak on this matter, please step to the podium. Excellent. At this time, I would close the public portion of the meeting. I will return back to commissioners, starting with Commissioner Gerda.
Don't have any additional questions?
Excellent. Commissioner Walsh.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Sabota.
I don't have a question as a commissioner, but I have a comment as a resident. I know the traffic study was done. I don't wanna beat a dead horse, but I'm about to. I have a daughter in high school, been there for after-school activities. There's no cop there during after-school activities. There's a play, if there's a dance, there's nobody out there, and it's a complete disaster trying to get out of that parking lot. As a resident, I really, really would suggest whatever you need to do to put a traffic light in, you're eventually gonna save a life somewhere. I've seen some people try to take a left turn out of there and do some stupid things. As a resident, I really, really highly suggest whatever you guys need to do, put a light there. And I like the road lighting too, but I'm not asking for that, I'm asking for a light. That's all I have to say as a resident. As a commissioner, my issues were the light and the basin, and they were both addressed, so I'm good.
Thank you, Commissioner Sabota. Commissioner Miller.
I would just echo the concern about traffic along with Alderman Glad that, you know, I live right the street, and that's my main path of travel. And there are moments that it's not traffic controlled, and with 200 plus more cars, it's gonna be more difficult. So hopefully in the plan, we're looking at alternative ins and outs, and I respect that we don't need a light now, but we may need one in the future, particularly when that 64,000 square foot addition becomes maximized in its use and its purpose, to bring it to a scientific, mathematical student center and vocational technology business place. So we're gonna have more traffic, so that's, I just wanna echo that concern. And I recognize that you've done your studies, but I think the impact is gonna be a little greater than we think.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Doherty.
Pretty much the same thing, because I see, like at Holy Apostles, what happened to that intersection right there. And after 15 years or 20 years, it's still the same out there, so, you know, I just wanna make sure we don't have something happen like that again. That's always a bottleneck there.
Thank you, Commissioner Doherty. I don't normally throw my 2 cents in, but I think, I have the same additional concern about traffic, but I also feel like the reduction in parent drop-off emulates a different amount of traffic in and out. We're gonna add 264 spaces to the parking lot, but ultimately, without freshmen attending the campus, how many drop-offs are reduced in that? In my own perspective, I don't believe we're gonna have another 264 cars in and out total because of the reduction in freshmen being dropped off. My guess is it will be a limited amount of increase. Still an increase, still a concern for people turning left out of the school for sure. And again, the non-school times, non-policed issue, I have the same issue, but again, I think that between the police department and staff in District 156 addressing an alternative ingress situation for this project. We haven't seen that yet, and council will see that again as this moves forward. And I feel confident that the people who are working on this project have heard us tonight. I'm sure they will hear the same thing from our aldermen when it gets to council, and there will be an alternative for a second in and out. There's probably just really not, I don't know that council's going to push this without an alternative. So again, I think everybody's voice has been heard, but I do think there's some alternative to that.
Well, with drop-offs being reduced, you're also gonna get more students wanting to drive to school.
Well,
You're
for
gonna get
sure.
Sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and that parking lot will be full with student drivers. It's not experienced parents dropping off and picking up.
True, but I also believe that the parent drop-off is part of the issue.
Sure.
So, again, that's why we're here as a committee to do these things and have these conversations. We appreciate everybody is concerned about that. Do you have anything additional, Mr. Sabota? Commissioner Miller?
Do we know how many traffic accidents, not to beat that horse, but do we know how many traffic accidents happen there?
I'm not sure that anybody pulled the data, but
We actually, we did.
it should be in the study if you wanted to pick that.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Let me hit you too. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Lynn Means. I'm a senior transportation engineer with Gewalt Hamilton, 625 Forest Edge Drive in Vernon Hills, Illinois. First, I wanted to speak relative to the need for the traffic signal. So based on current conditions right now, a traffic signal isn't warranted. The traffic signal is warranted based on looking at adjacent street traffic volumes in combination with the exiting traffic volumes. Projecting some level into the future with growth in traffic, we did note that a traffic signal would be warranted at some time in the future, potentially when the school would reach its capacity, which would be sometime significantly in the future. Right now, the growth of student population has been relatively stagnant within the district, as well as possibly seen some decline. As you noted, with this new addition coming in, and or possibly, if there were some large-scale subdivision coming in, that increase could occur. So that's something that would definitely need warranted. However, as noted within our study, Looking at opportunities to separate users, I think, is one key aspect of our study and the recommendation that we have. Currently, right now, the staff parks in the north lot, and the south lot is used for both student parking as well as parent drop-off and pickups. So you get a lot of congestion just associated with the ins of the students, the ins and the outs in the mornings, as well as then in the afternoon with the ins and the outs of the combination as well. So we're looking to, and in conjunction with city staff as well as school district staff, exploring options, which we have developed some, to find a way to separate those parent drop-offs from that student population. So separating that traffic and or creating an additional egress, et cetera, those will reduce some of the congestion. And as noted earlier by Tom, there's also some congestion that's currently exhibited along Crystal Lake Road itself, just due to the signal timings, that they're very short cycle lengths. When you get the ped calls on them, they take away time from the main line, and it really disrupts and throws off the traffic pattern. So just implementing some simple traffic signal modifications to the cycle lengths and splits will help to alleviate a little bit of that congestion as well. And lastly, I know circling back to the issue with crashes. We did pull crash statistics for the a 5-year period that was available. And if you look within table 2 of the traffic study, I'd be happy to go over that. It's on page 12 of it, but it details that at the south access over the 5-year period, there was 1 collision. The center access, which is the bus access, we had 4 collisions, and then the north access, mainly the staff access, is 11. But that is also used for, during activities, for drop-off pickups, et cetera, and other types of activities as well. We did note as well the other collisions that did occur internal. We collaborated with the police staff from the city, and also captured how many collisions are occurring within the parking lots itself. I don't know if anyone has any additional, I know there's a lot questions for me relative to the traffic and or parking study that was provided.
Commissioner Gerda?
So here's a question, and this is not related to west, but if we're gonna be moving all the drop-offs from west, what's the traffic gonna look like on Green Street? Has anyone thought about that? Whereas, what's that gonna become like?
Well, I think the student population number will probably dictate your removing, and I'm not sure if Tom has this number off the top, or if I'm going to need to swear in Dr. McTagg as well, but your student population at East Campus will be reduced to 522 students or so as freshmen only. And so there's currently, and I'm gonna guess there's 240 parking spots, maybe not that many, 200 or so parking spots in that lot currently.
That's about right.
Used by those drivers that come and park there. You will eliminate all of that usage to only staff there. So I think reconfiguring the lanes at East Campus will make it easier. I can't answer for Green Street and John Street traffic, but I think the interior lot structure will probably be fine because there won't be students parking at all.
Like, just saying,
Overall, getting in and out is absolutely, but I think if you take out 200 students driving in and you only have drop-offs for 500 students, some will be siblings, we probably won't have full, there will be multiples and buses as well. So again, I'm not sure how that dictates, but yes, the street traffic will be a concern as well. And I'm sure the aldermen, we have 2 of them here in the room that I'm sure will be addressing that as well at the council level. And again, I didn't mean to jump in, but I think that's probably an accurate depiction, and you can probably help me with that.
Yeah, that's true. While we didn't specifically study the east operations after, there is a considerable reduction associated with the student drivers coming over. So you only in the morning will have, you'll have more drop-off and pickups, and you won't have all that parking. So there will be opportunities for reconfiguration, and that could be something that is worked with it as well with city staff to develop an appropriate plan to accommodate the school operations.
Great question though, Commissioner Gerda, because I think that's one of the concerns that probably needs to be addressed at council level as well, and because we're talking about an entity that's on the other side of town, I think at council with Alderman Glab in the gallery and soon to be Alderman Miller on our committee here tonight, I would think that staff having Dr. McTagg here tonight, hearing that from this group, I think that's definitely a concern that should be addressed on East Campus's traffic, and what will that do to the Green Street, John Street traffic, and hopefully they can work directly with the police department as well on that alternative. Currently, that's, I live on that side of town, so I feel that pain on a daily basis as well, so I think that'll definitely change though with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional questions, Commissioner? Gerda?
Just, no, we're saying how much it's gonna decrease on one side, but, you know, again, just as we said, no one's studied or brought, you know, even took into consideration the additional, not the students parking, but the parents dropping, you know, driving and leaving.
Yeah.
That will definitely, I feel it's gonna increase traffic there.
You talking about at East Campus?
At East Campus,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, for sure.
Yes.
And again, I think everybody here will shake their head and say, yeah, we should definitely address that as well. Commissioner Walsh, any additional? Commissioner Sabota?
You know, I just don't wanna be reactive, I'd like to be proactive. Some of the things that we do or suggest should be for the good of the city. And I know your traffic study says it doesn't warrant it, but some things are just good. I mean, every resident and everybody up here had brought up a light, because it's a problem. And the state doesn't seem to think it's a problem. Well, you know, maybe they're wrong, maybe they have different standards than we like to live by, but some things should be proactive. And I think this is one thing the city should be proactive on for its citizens.
Yeah. Commissioner Miller?
Good.
Commissioner Doherty?
Fine.
At this time, I'm looking for a motion. For the first item, again, as we reviewed before we started this, we would be looking for, bear with me a second. We would be looking for a motion for the conditional use permit for the assembly use as a first vote, and then we will lump the remaining variances together.
So I'll make that motion to recommend the approval of the conditional use permit to allow an assembly use with the following conditions, the 7 points listed on the recommendation.
Excellent, thank you, Commissioner Miller. Do I have a second?
Before we do that, does your motion include that all the requirements of table 31 have been met?
Yes, thank you.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Sabota. And additional questions, comments, concerns? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty?
Yes.
Commissioner Strack?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Sabota?
Yes.
Commissioner Gerda?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Excellent. Now moving on to the additional items on tonight's agenda, we would be looking at the variance for the building height, the variance for the landscaping and screening ordinance, and last item on that would be the accessory use yard fence for the additional ancillary structure, which would be the salt dome behind the current maintenance building on that property existing. So those 3 items would be voted together. Looking for a motion for those items.
So I will also make that motion that we recommend approval of the variance for the maximum building height from 35 to 45 feet with the following condition as stated. Staff finds the requirements are set forth in table 32 have been met, along with the approval of the variance for the landscaping and screening ordinance to eliminate the parking lot islands with the condition as stated. Requirements of table 32 have been met. And lastly, approval of the variance from the accessory uses, yards, and fences to allow an additional structure, the salt dome, with the following condition as stated, and table 32 has been met.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second again.
Commissioner Sabota on a second. Any additional questions, concerns? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gerda?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty,
Yes.
Commissioner Strack,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Sabota.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, I do.
Thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to close file Z946. Staff, please give us your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next meeting date is May 15th, and then in your packets, I put maps, the zoning map, and then a very rough map for the historical areas for the comp plan that are shaded. They're a little bit rough, but just something for you to look at and kind of think about, that we can talk about at another future meeting date.
That's the shaded areas that are in, and I'm colorblind, blue?
Yes, yes,
Is that blue?
yeah,
Are you really?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
They look bluish, how's that?
yes.
Excellent. So we'll be looking to review those as we move forward with our next meeting. Commissioner Miller?
So seeing that the home map project was sort of my project, and I requested them to be bigger and more.
Did you want a bigger zoning map?
I want a big, seriously, I want a big map somewhere in this room. Because I think as decisions are being made, it would be a nice visual aid to have a ginormous map somewhere in this room moving forward. Whether it's a big board.
That one's empty.
I happen to dislike these photos behind us with every ounce of my energy. I would love to see these photos replaced with big maps that coordinate to what our city does and is. But that's my personal one. I thank you for the maps, but if we could get one up somewhere, I would be greatly appreciative.
We're on the north wall, so it's, the top is north. Right there.
Right there.
Commissioner Miller, we so appreciate your map project, and I'm going to guess that as an alderwoman, one of the first things on your agenda to discuss with Mayor Jett would be that board right there just become a big, beautiful map.
I can do that.
And the Planning and Zoning Commission will support you in that, and I'll send a letter to
And
the
they'll
mayor.
appreciate it.
Absolutely, they will.
You don't want them back here?
No, I think right there is perfect.
Okay. You like these pictures?
No, but I think the map is better over there.
Paint the river green, and those will be fine.
Again, Commissioner Miller, we appreciate your service.
Thanks.
We look forward to you serving us well on the city council. And,
Yeah, great job tonight.
Thank you.
Hitting all of them.
thank you, yes. Get them all in while you
You
can.
got earned your
Thank you
paycheck
very
tonight.
much.
Staff, do you have
Good
anything
job,
else for us
sir.
tonight? Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Anything else for us
Oh,
tonight,
no,
staff?
I'm good.
At this time, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Sue, close it out.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? Sabota, anyone opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure to serve and an honor, and I will continue to represent you well.
Thank you.
Good job.